Fia.
You need to go back to the title. We didn't hear the title.
The title is Forgetting, thanks, Kenny, Forgetting and Remembering. So we're going to work on that tonight. Okay. I've been working on it lately and I wanted to share it because this situation happened to me where I came across this idea that I forgot to remember God. And then when I remembered that I forgot, I had to fill that in, that it was God. And then when I remembered that I forgot, I was able to shift things around. Okay, so that's where we're going to start, and we're going to move through it and see what we can learn, what we can take away from this. Yeah, does that happen to anybody? Like if I just say this now, who has an awareness of what that, like what you're like, oh my gosh, totally forgot that there's God in the picture. Then you're like, oh, I remember. Okay, I could work with this. Because some people, when they forget, they feel like bad. They feel bad. Oh, they expect to forget? Larry says when you reach a certain age, you forget. Oh my gosh. Okay, Larry. Senility kicks in and then you obviously forget. Is that what you're saying? Okay, fine. Okay. When things get challenging, I myself will forget what to do, what my Jewish life can do for me. I remember then when I forget that I have these tools in my Jewish toolbox that I've practiced. And when I forget to do something, I remember that I forgot it. And then I can dig into the box for the right tool for my Jewish life. It's usually emunah, usually belief. Sometimes some of my friends here know it's chesed, like I have to run out and just go help somebody, and that changes shifts my mood around. People have different things that they do where they remember that I need to do something. Okay. And I can turn it around. My background, most of you know, is that I did not grow up knowing a lot about what we're sitting here talking about today, to the extent that I probably would say that I knew very little to nothing. And when I started on a journey of learning, which was when I was in my early 20s, and I've said to some people, I was going for the social aspect. It was really fun. A lot of cute boys, totally having a good time. I was in my early 20s in Los Angeles, not hearing a thing that the people were saying, the speakers. But eventually it started to seep in. And some of my other friends who were going were like, you should really come and hear the guy speak at his house. So I started to go because the cute guy was asking me to go. I'm going to go. So I go and I'm listening and I'm learning and I have no idea what they're talking about. Nothing. And the worst part, which I know I've shared here too, is that this was the funny one where they would talk about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Hashem. I'm like, okay, there's 4 of them. There's 4 fathers. Okay, 4 fathers. Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Hashem. And it took a while to figure out Hashem was not one of them. Like I didn't know. I had one of my flatmates in my first year in college, University of Iowa. She was from Des Moines, and she let me know she was Jewish. And I thought, well, Des Moines, how Jewish can that be? I'm from Northbrook, so Jewish. So she came down before Rosh Hashanah, and she brought me some apples and honey. So sweet, right? And I said, "What's this for?" This is it. Okay, so this is where I started. And as I continued to learn, and I stayed around for a year and a half, going back to class and going back to class and going back to class, there were many aha moments, and which I think a lot of us have had here. There were so many, I never knew that. Nobody ever taught me that. I had no idea that's what's going on. And the layers don't end. I mean, it just keeps going. You could get overwhelmed by the amount that we don't know. But I also loved my aha moments because it allowed me to put things together and to keep going. I like them. It doesn't bother me as much anymore that I don't know what's happening sometimes. That like with certain whatever we're learning is going over my head, or I'm not paying attention, I can't take it in. I'm okay with that because I was learned how to respect that aha moment of I don't know what this is, but I'm willing to listen. And then on the other side of it, this is this. Let's see where I am here. Does anybody else feel bad when they realize they don't know something or forgot something? You don't want to be in a perpetual state of depression. So is anybody? You have to stop feeling bad at some point. Yeah. Or embarrassed. Like, yeah, it happens. It's a shame it happens because it belongs to us. It's ours. It's our identity. Like it's a shame, but that's okay because we can fix that too. But I mean, we're all in this way. Um, so I have this like insight, this new thing, which is called chadash in Hebrew means new. And when you take it to like describe something that's a new thought, it's a chiddush. So I thought I had this new chiddush when I was talking to a very close friend, I think it was like 3 years ago, and I was trying to completely fix, manage, and control something that was going on with one of my children. And it was really out of control. I wanted him to be in a certain program, and I was concerned they weren't going to let him in the program. And so I had to call, and you can all probably go down this road with me, but I had to call the principal to make sure that the principal knew that I wanted it. And I had to call the teacher to make the teacher know that I wanted it. And then I called the parents that were on the parent board. And my husband's like, what are you doing? You're making yourself crazy. I'm like, oh no, he's here. It's okay. Oh no, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to make this work. So I was saying it to a friend, and a very, very close friend of mine said, Chava, you know that Hashem is part of this picture, don't you? Totally. There it is. Susan just said, oh, I forgot. And when she said it to me, it was like, oh, that's right. I forgot to remember about Hashem. I've only been taking care of it myself, and I know better, right? Like I should know to rely on Hashem, and even me. So I needed that moment, and I sat there and said, I forgot to remember, and I'm so glad I'm remembering I forgot, and I can do something with that. I know it sounds weird, but it really works for me because on the other side of remembering that you forgot is a whole world of work that's beautiful and helpful and honest, and it can be easy. We just have to frame it that way and not stay in the feel bads, or I don't know. People say to me, I'm such a bad Jew. I'm like, okay, I don't even know what that means. I don't even have an answer for that. Or you're a better Jew than I am. I'm like, also, we've talked about this, but that does not exist in God's world. Anyway, so this was my new idea, and my close friend helped me get there. And I thought I totally am going to hold this with me if I can. I'm going to work with this. Also, it is okay in today's generation to come up with new ideas when it comes to learning Torah, as long as they are based in
I'll text Julie and tell her. Oh. She's restarting it, I guess. She'll be back. This happened before. She'll restart the Zoom.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Lauren just said the Zoom went out, so they know it went out. I don't know if it's coming back, but I'll keep you posted.
I got a message that something was low, bandwidth was low.
Well, that's you. When you get that message, I think that's
Me?
your, yeah.
Oh,
But I mean,
okay.
you're not this problem. I think that's just coincidental. We just need to get Wi-Fi. Oh, Julie says it was her fault. Okay. So she'll be back.
Thanks.
No prob, I say.
Should back up the tape so that we don't miss anything.
They are recording it. Yeah.
That doesn't help me that they're recording it.
Back up the tape. Right, Ken, I get it. Rewind. Hit rewind.
Chava can go get something to drink, take a
Hmm.
little break.
I think she's still going. We're the ones who aren't. Oh, Julie said, oh, she went outside with her phone, but she forgot they were on her hotspot. She'll be back. Missy, are you in the fire station? Look at you.
Looks like she's doing an inspection.
Oh. She's in the firehouse. She's muted though, so we can't hear her.
Turn on the lights.
We still can't hear
We
you.
can't
Missy.
hear you. You're muted.
You're muted.
Duh, sorry.
That's okay.
I volunteer for Hatzalah, which is a Jewish ambulance service.
Wow.
I dispatched for them tonight from 8 to 10. So I was going through the garage and into the dispatch room.
Gotcha. You're
Sorry.
nice.
Oh, we got a nice tour.
Think you can. I'm gonna mute myself.
Oh, they're coming back. Here we go.
Once they got past the bar and bat mitzvah stage, her Jewish life just floated away. So if it wasn't like brought to life by somebody else's life cycle event, she was losing it. Yeah. You can relate?
went to Israel. It came back.
Is anybody in that place now where you're like, oh gosh, I need to get it back? Oh, I don't know. I think that a lot of people are sitting here already on the path to getting it back, so I'm not sure. If
Yeah,
we're- but
that's
we
why
can
we're
bring it
here.
back to them. Okay. That,
Those that don't have people going to Israel. Not everybody's first. So.
Julie.
we have a lot.
Sports, that's right.
I got the volume off.
I'll just keep going.
I mean.
Now we see you, but you're muted. We see you now, but you're muted. Unmute, Julie.
Don't want you to hear it.
There we
Oh, there
go.
it is. Oh,
Now
now,
we see and hear you.
now it's working.
Thank you all for your patience. Everything, okay. Go on. Yeah, go on. Okay.
All right. All this forgetting, I can't listen, I can't hear myself.
I don't know.
Julie, you have to mute your phone because there's a horrible echo. because
It's
they're
more
both-
than muted, it's off.
Should this be muted?
No, we see you as unmuted. We see L'Chaim Center as unmuted, and there's a weird echo because you're both on.
What if you all you call me and I'll tell you one day in the future, we hang up. I also do.
Can send them a file.
Trying to get this person off.
Okay. I would like to reframe. Perhaps it's not that you have forgotten to remember. Perhaps, yeah, it's so hard, but I can't even. But I don't know.
Somehow, Julie, you're not showing us.
Hi,
muted.
Liz. Just give me a
Okay.
minute, okay?
Sorry. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you, Malka. Thank you, Malka.
I just feel like a little bit, I'm
No,
loving the echo. All right.
no.
Okay.
Usually funny. I just am like a little bit. All right,
Okay, here's what I'm saying.
okay.
It's, we're signed on to it.
As kind of like, I wouldn't call it a profession, but it seems to be the thing that I end up doing a lot. I see people when they go through that up and down, where I see what goes on when they forget that they remember, they forgot something.
understand it. And I want to respect it. I want to remove the feel bads. That's the purpose of this. And I want us to see like our national history with forgetting, what Hashem thinks about us, how Hashem sees us in the remembering and the forgetting. That's how we're doing it now. Okay. Here's an example. We had a Shabbos meal this summer with some couples, some friends of ours. So some of the guys went to shul to Friday night services with Ken, and I was thinking about it, but I was like, to stay home, put everything together, and some of my friends stayed with me. And when my husband came home, he whispered that one of the guys was having a hard time. He didn't like it. Like, he didn't want to daven. And he knows how, and he grew up with a background that knows how, and he didn't want to. And okay, like all right, thank you for telling me. And he felt bad. I'm like, I don't feel bad. It'll be okay. So we get through the whole meal, and this person was asking a lot of questions, and I thought, there it is. There's that Jewish piece. There's that Pintala Yid that's just showing up and coming out. Somehow there's a memory in there, a remembering that's happening, that's coming out. Okay, fine. We get to benching. And this person, it was actually adorable. He gets excited and his hands start going like this, and he starts singing a camp tune, and he's like singing the entire benching from Shira Malos all to the way to the end with all the jokes, the like, I don't know, it's a pizza party joke, whatever it is. And I thought, there it is. There is that internal piece where even if he's upset or frustrated or forgot things, there is a Jewish memory inside of us, in our DNA, that we built by going to school, by learning. And if it's forgotten, look, in this room, it's not forgotten because we're all sitting here. So clearly we're remembering something. We are like the exception, I think. But it is okay if it's quiet, your Judaism, for a long time and you don't know where it went. And if it comes back out, it's just very exciting to be. It's very, okay, it's upsetting sometimes because you're like, where did it go? But it's just very exciting. So that was one of my examples of, I just saw like how people work when they're reattaching to it. Forgetting about a relationship and covenant with Hashem and remembering it is built into our DNA and into our history. As we will see, it's mentioned numerous times in the Torah. It's not just something that I'm talking about to you now, or that it was mentioned in the 1500s in the book that I saw, or that we know about the destruction of the temple. This is going all the way back to when Hashem gave the Torah. He said many, many times, don't forget. I'm telling you, don't forget. I'm also asking you, please remember. When I put in forget and remember into my Sefaria search, the list was so long, and I had 25 sources, and I was on the phone with my teacher, Rebbitzin Pavlov, this morning, and she's like, oh, this is way too many sources. I'm like, but they're all so good. They're all so good. They all talk about it. She's like, we brought it all down, but it is all over. Now, why would Hashem be giving us a way of living and yet stick in continuously, like, you're going to forget? Just letting you know. You're going to remember too, but you better remember. But you're going to forget. It's like a little bit confusing. I sound like you. So, it's her fault that I married Ken. Love it. Thank you. Oh, you know what? I should give credit. Ken, if Kenny's here, I had a lot of help from my husband today and this whole week, helping put it together. So he also gets credit. Yeah, no. He gets a lot of credit for that. I don't want to take away from that. That's true.
I'm
Okay,
glad
fine.
you didn't forget me.
Anyway, so there is, where am I? Hold on a second. Yeah, okay. So it comes up over and over in the Torah. And I wanted to read to you a couple of places where it comes up. Let's see if it's familiar to you. But I was also thinking about when we go to Parsha class, which a lot of us go to on Shabbos here with Eve, or if you go somewhere else, or if you go to a Torah class, you kind of can see in their life what happened, if you're learning it well enough, how it relates to our life. So you can see what they laid down for us that we shouldn't forget, and you can remember how to use it in our life. That's really what it's there for. Like, I could learn about Yosef and the pain that he had that his brothers sold him, and the exuberant joy and love that he had when he was reunited with them, that I didn't even care. He told them, it doesn't even matter what you did. I'm so happy to be here. Or we can read about Esther Amalka, and know that I wouldn't want to be in her story. Her life is sad. She did a beautiful job. She did what she needed to do. But if you keep reading on, you're like, oh, she didn't get to go back. She had to stay there. It's sad. I love that you say that. That's how I feel it's sad. Yeah. That means that what happened back then is still in us and a lesson for us today. It's fascinating. It's not just a Bible that we read and we leave back there. It's alive with us. It's walking with us. It's supposed to. By the way, it's called Torah Chaim. I say this sometimes, a Torah Chaim. Have you heard of this before? Well, Chaim means living, and it's a Torah. It's a living Torah. So what does it mean it's a living Torah? I mean, there's songs about it. What does a living Torah mean? I'm sorry, you can't hear what she's saying.
That, you know, she takes that old text and old parsons and makes them relevant to our life.
Okay, correct.
People are living life.
Mhm,
People are suffering
Mhm.
like that.
mhm.
And they are really
I hope you can hear. Sorry if you can't.
accomplishing a lot, but they are also suffering. So I find that when I think life is very challenging and difficult and it's so overwhelming and like, what? Like, why me? I'm like, maybe I'll just like open up a Chumash and just like read some of those stories. And it's like they went through it and I have their DNA. So like I can do this. I can do this. I can. You shouldn't have to be Esther. Nobody should be in that position. God forbid. Sometimes you will find yourself in places that feel like that. Like you are like a martyr. You are like giving over and above. You're pushing for a greater good other than yourself or even like your people. Like you're really trying to be extraordinary. And you can be like her. And you know what? I don't think it's as valued in the world today being like that because it's not so pleasurable. It's not so chill. It doesn't look so great. It doesn't feel so good. It's not so pleasurable. It actually hurts. It hurts. But when you get through it and you're like Esther, okay, it wasn't easy, but she felt good about herself. I'm assuming she did. I'm assuming she did.
How about Moshe?
I was just thinking of that.
Okay, what were you thinking about Moshe?
So, like, I remember.
Okay, does this help if I do this? I can't even get feedback. Let's just,
Like, I remember reading, there's a line that says, God does not ask you to be as great as Moshe, they ask you to be like the best you can be. And then I think it was last week or the week before, it talks about how Moshe says, how am I going to be the one to lead the people? I don't have the ability to lead these people, but Hashem is telling me I have the ability to lead these people. So when they say you don't have to be as great as Moses, even Moses didn't think he could be as great as Moses. So it's like, where do you come up with the courage to be the best you can be?
I hear that. I hear that's, so there are,
He gets a start.
there are so many things that we can take today from our history. I know I keep coming back to that. What was sad, and my students in my school know I cry about this but when Moshe in Devarim at the end, so it's the 5th book of the Torah, which is really called Mishnah Torah. It's a review of everything that happened up until that point, but it's a review with some different words. It's more intense, it's more beautiful. And at the end, you find out, guess what? Moshe doesn't get to go into Israel. It's like, I find it so painful. Can you imagine having to be that? And the way that we get to go to Israel, like, I mean, you know, hopefully like this, I don't know, some people have their challenges getting there, but like, we can go to Israel, Moshe, with all that work and all that talk and the saving of the Jewish people and the understanding of keeping the covenant alive, even though he didn't even know because he was raised in Pharaoh's palace. And yet when he remembers that he's a Jew, when he realizes he's a Jew and he keeps alive what Avram did and Sarah did, and that he can't even go into the land that was promised to us, I find that heartbreaking. So we can learn something here, but I'm saying we can learn something here from Moshe. And the last one I was going to mention is Rachel. So not being able to get pregnant. And that happens a lot with the women, with the Jewish women. And there's things to learn about that. But today we can relate to what happened to them. So what happened with our forefathers and our foremothers happens to us. It's in our memory. It is in our national memory. Okay, and that's what happens when we learn Torah, we read about it, we read the Parsha. It just reminds me that Judaism is alive in so many of us and in our memory. And if we forget it, we can quickly circle back and remember it. We shouldn't feel so bad. Clearly, that's my theme tonight. Okay, I would like to read from my source sheet just so you can hear a little bit about You know, like I said before, if my idea is based in a source, then it's probably a strong idea. If my idea is off the wall, I might be a different Messiah from a different religion, which I don't want to be. So I'm going to stay within the constraints, the confines of Judaism, and let you know that while I'm finding a new way to live with this, it is within the realm of Jewish life and the last 2,000 years of the Talmud, and from even before that. Okay. Yes,
Well put.
it is our Masorah. It is our heritage. Okay, in Breshit, in Genesis, Hashem says, I will maintain my covenant between me and you and your offspring to come as an everlasting covenant throughout the ages, to be the God to you and to your offspring to come. So he's reminding you that I will always be here. And I'm going to maintain this contract and covenant that we've made. I'm just letting you know, you may forget about it. I'm not forgetting about it, okay? We are gonna kill the Zoom and move on. Your battery died. I think it's time to say, life is good. Just move on. I don't even care. But no, go away. Just move on. Let's move on. Whatever. Okay. In divine. You know what? It's good because some of you know the stress of putting together somehow with just the on. And I have spoken to many of you many times, and it made no sense to any of us why I was so stressed.
So does this feel, does this feel good? Yeah. That this is the problem?
And my new friend back there, Larry, it did make me very happy to see that. I like learning from them. Larry, that's fun. Okay. In Devarim,
So Larry knows a lot.
Hashem says, you have affirmed this day that Hashem is your God, in whose ways you will walk, whose laws and commandments and rules you will observe, and whom you will follow. Reminding us, look, we did this together. I told you, you said yes, we're walking it together, and you're okay with it. You like it. I like it. That's what's happening here. And Hashem has affirmed this day that you are, as promised, God's treasured people who shall observe all the divine commandments. Different class, a little bit about what it means to be chosen people and to be Hashem's chosen, and to be so he loves us as beloved people, but that's a little bit of what's happening in here. In Shmot, in Exodus, it says, and Moshe said to the people, remember this day on which you went free from Egypt, the house of bondage, how Hashem freed you from it with a mighty hand, no leavened bread shall be eaten. So here we're now reminding you of how you were pulled out, you were sucked out at the bottom. We were at the 49th level. There was no more, you couldn't go any lower than we were in Egypt. And Hashem still swooped in there and pulled us out, and he wants us to remember that. What are you laughing about over there? Okay.
Complaining that she thinks Zoom is dead.
Tell her, sorry, it's dead on like so many levels right now.
It's a lesson from the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, again in Shmot,
Could you tell her
Hashem
sorry?
says, I like this one. Well, I like all of them. He will show kindness to the 1,000th generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. So if we're ever wondering if Hashem forgot about us this far down in Egypt, it's not possible, because he said he never will forget about us. And not only will he not forget about us, we will forget our children, our children, our children's children. There's a tremendous amount of strength in knowing that picture. And then it was proven again and again throughout history. And of course, obviously, the fact that we're all sitting here means that that statement was true. What Hashem said he would do. Okay, in Devarim, I wasn't even telling you what chapter. If you want the source, I can send it to you. Four. But take utmost care and watch yourselves. Listen to this one. But take utmost care. I don't know what's going. I don't even know if you can hear me. I think I'm unmuted. Oh my. Okay, but take utmost care and watch yourself scrupulously.
Next week, maybe they'll come.
But take utmost care and watch yourself scrupulously so that you do not forget the things that you saw with your own eyes, and so that you do not fade from your mind. They do not fade from your mind as long as you live, and make them known to your children and to your children's children. Again, saying the same thing over and over and over. And then in Devarim, this last part, I have two more in Devarim. Beware lest your heart forget your God who freed you from the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. There are so many, again, if you would type in forget and remember, there's just such a long list of, I just picked some of the ones that I found most powerful, of where Hashem is saying in the Torah, which is your guidebook for how to live life. And not just in the Torah, but in everything in Nach and the Nevi'im and the Ketuvim that come after that. And then there's the oral law, and then there's the writings, and then there's 2,000 generations afterwards where there's all this writing, and they're saying, you do not have to forget, and you can remember this, and I'm going to tell you how. Because if you want to get to know who God is, you just have to go meet God in the learning of the Torah. God tells you who he is over and over. So some of us were at a Shabbaton last week, and I was talking about the gratitude from Hashem. And I feel like, because my students, I teach middle school girls who are pre-bat mitzvah, and they are not interested in Yiddishkeit and Judaism. Not interested. Parents put them there, and there's a lot of this. Somebody today was cutting her hair. I'm like, oh my gosh. So and this all happened. I'm not even like trying to be funny. I was like, this is, by the way, I gave a whole class to them today, so they might've been really out of their minds with boredom. But
Because it's directed at yourself, it's not motion Torah.
What do you mean?
You just put yourself there.
Oh no, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I just keep moving. I just keep moving forward. But I can't remember what my point was, so I'm going to move on.
You forgot.
I'm going to forget, and I'm going to forget, and I'm going to remember. They were cutting their hair. They were cutting their hair. It's interesting to teach young children. It's interesting to teach children about, it's interesting to teach them anyway. Because how do you get them to pay attention? How do you get them to have a desire to learn? Okay, fine. But we're all trained that our school, our main school, that's what we have to pay attention to. And when we go to Sunday school, or we go to Hebrew school, or we go to Torah jail, or whatever it's called, JF jail, whatever it is, and we tend to hate it. We don't, right? So like, it's up to us as parents and educators to try and flip it around and make it exciting and make it interesting. And so that is a lot of what we learn. That's the takeaway that we're constantly bringing back, that Eve is bringing back. See, Eve is bringing back, that Rabbi Gadi's bringing back into the class. We're all trying to keep it alive so that we don't forget it. It's very important to us as parents. It's not so important when you're kids. It's kind of funny though, because they're the ones that get all the education. They don't care. And we're the ones that need it now. Interesting how that happens. Yeah, we're here by choice. All right. Once I was all working on this and I was exploring, I came across something with Devorah. It was actually Eve teaches on Tuesdays. I'm not even plugging her because I think everybody here knows that she teaches, but she was talking about different Jewish women, and she was talking about the Shofetes, the prophetess Devorah, and Yael. And I had like a moment where I'm like who's Yael? I can't remember what Yael did. So I went to the chapter. I have a book that I was reading on it, and I was just, it was so beautiful. It said so clearly what happens to us as a nation, and that Hashem knew this was going to happen, which is why he built into this a system to remember, not to forget. And she said things were good. Things were good in the time of Devorah. Everybody was doing well. And then they forgot. And then things became bad. And then they were in a war. And then they had problems. And it was because they forgot their connection to God. They got so comfortable with what they had, they didn't really have to rely on God anymore.
Sounds like today. Yeah.
But it also sounds like what happened in Italy in the 1500s, right? And I don't know if this is hard for you to hear, but in Berlin in the 1920s and 1930s, it was happening there as well. Maybe not so much the other countries, but Germany was like, we're doing great, and so it's going to happen again and again. I'm not going to fix it. This class isn't going to fix it. Hashem said this is how it's going to go, but there are lessons to be learned for us so that we can try not to have it happen, at least in our space with our children. And I think all of us here bring it to our houses. We bring it to our homes, or we want to. Okay, so the book of Shoftim, Sefer Shoftim, which is also Book of Judges in English, is a prototype for Jewish history. This is where Devorah was. She's in the Book of Shoftim. So I looked around and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is depressing. It is a constant up and down of the Jewish people. So Rebbetzin Pavlov helped me sort of understand it. Because I was like, this is hard to read. not hard to read, but it's painful to read. The book of Judges is a prototype for Jewish history. It's also a prototype for ourselves, because the way it works is that there's a strong leader, like I said, and then we are doing really well and we believe in God, and then we believe in ourselves and our strength so much, we forget about war and something bad happens to us. Okay, so I don't want to even, whatever the bad is, whether it's a war or a destruction, or they're trying to kill us, or they're trying to convert us, and we cry out to Hashem for help, because we remember that we can use prayer to cry out, and Hashem swoops in and saves us, and there's a Yeshua, and we're all better, and we're doing better. And we see this, if you look at Jewish history, if you're a Jewish history studier like I am, you're like, oh, there are times of tremendous prosperity. I mean, before the Spanish Inquisition, we were doing beautifully for hundreds of years in France and in Spain and in like, you know, Southwest Africa. We were doing great. What?
So is it the more we assimilate, the more we forget?
Did you guys hear that? The more we assimilate, I'm not telling them anything, I feel. The more we assimilate, the more we forget. Would you say that's true?
That's what we put in the effort.
One and the same thing.
You know what else? You have to want to put the effort in. You have to have the want sparked, which is where I started, which is with the whole like, what? I didn't know this. And I wanted to learn more because I didn't know it. And once I started to figure it out, especially the Shema, that was a big moment when I learned what the Shema was, where it came from, how it could help me. I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. This is not a bad way to live. I also had a very hard time with the fact that you could die. This was when I was in my like late teens and early 20s, and that you were just food for worms. It's too much for me. I can't imagine that this life and all that we go through is for naught, for food. No, I don't understand. And there was no answer until I fell into this whole Jewish life, and I got answers that make it so much easier. It is like a balm on the soul. When you dive into what Judaism has to offer you, okay, you could be frustrated and you might be annoyed, and you may even be, there are certain very challenging topics within Jewish life that are very, what's the word? You didn't like it last week. Triggering. Thank you. Triggering. And I can't speak to those because I didn't write the Torah and I'm not God. I can just say that they're there. But if you can carry that while carrying what you want to keep learning, you can find so much healing. And God wanted us to have that. He gave that to us. That was the whole manual. But he was like, but you're going to forget it. So I hope you remember it. And pardon me?
It's like a New Year's resolution. Start the new year with a tremendous amount of energy and enthusiasm. And the first time you fall out of that journey, it shuts everything down. This is reminding us, you got to expect that. That's part of the journey. You're forgetting. And so in a sense, it becomes a gift.
Oh my gosh, you just said part of, I don't have to say this part. That is correct. You and I are like in it.
Wow, this is a good day for me.
It is exactly that. I thought that forgetting would make me feel like, you know, I shouldn't say that here. I said heck today and they got really mad at me. I'm like, oh, is that a bad word? I forgot. My sister's like, you can't say that. I'm like, okay, fine. No heck. I said heck. I used to feel very like low Jewish self-esteem, you know, and feeling like I'm like so embarrassed, like I don't know that. But I got better at turning it around and being like, wait a minute, I don't have to go there. I could be thrilled that I'm remembering it, that it's showing up, and I'm trying to learn a little bit every single day. I cannot tell you how many times I forget what the Mishnah is and the Medrash and the Gemara and the Talmud, and I constantly keep getting these words confused. And I am 30 years in, 30 years. I've been doing this more time than I haven't been. Still can't get it. But I don't know. I don't know. I should feel so bad. I feel good. I can feel good. I mean, I'm not trying to talk about myself. I'm trying to share how we can approach this. Okay. So anyways, I told you that that Shoftim is a prototype. Okay. It's interesting that Moshe prepared the Jewish people to go into Israel and how to settle the land of Israel and how to also live with the Torah that he gave them. I mean, that was 40 years of constant reviewing and teaching. And, you know, they set up a whole system of judges because Moshe couldn't do it all himself. And it was a living Torah in the desert. And they had miracles and miracles. And he's like, Yoshua, look, you got to figure this whole thing out because I see him not going in. So you got it? Yeshua was like, I got it. Great. And all the people that went in with Yeshua got it. And they all lived with it. And it was actually very, very good for about 80 years. And then Yeshua passed away. And the people that lived with Yeshua passed away. And that the people that saw the miracles or knew who Moshe was, they weren't around anymore. And so the next generation, fill me in here, forget. So we have to know that this is just, unfortunately, how it's going to go.
Isn't that one of the slogans?
Don't never forget. That's a Holocaust. So well, I was going to go there if we can go there. It's a little, okay, hold on a minute. I'm just going to see here. I don't want to miss anything. Yeah. I do want to mention that idol worship, which is you've heard how that's that we went to as idol worship. Does anybody care or have a clue what idol worship is at all? Anybody here have any drive to go put a Buddha in their house and go pray to it for help? No. And yet all we learn about is that the worst thing that we did was turn towards worshiping of idols or creating structures or symbols so that we could get the power from them because we had lost our attachment to a power from Hashem, right? Also okay, because it's said that the desire for idol worship today does not exist. And so therefore we know what it is, we have to remember what it is, but we don't really have that. So then the current sages and the current teachers will say to you, let's look today at what we default to when we don't have the strength or the desire to rely on Hashem. And yes, it's money. I think it's mostly power. I think it's, I can do this. If I can take this, this is mine. I'm not going to build a golden calf. It's a golden calf. I have no interest, and I have no interest in I watched a movie. It was like an Indian movie. I don't know. Something that's interesting how India works because it's so poor and so wealthy. It seems to be fascinating to me. So I watched a movie about it and I was watching them with their different idols thinking, how is that? We're very different. I just was curious, but they went through this wedding ceremony and they had stuff and there were 15 different idols with their statues on a wall. And they put one thing and they were talking to each other. They put another thing, talking to each other and put another thing and they just kept going. And I'm like, oh, it's so odd. I can't even relate to it. I don't want to discredit it because that is the way that that's their life, their religion. It's not mine. But I just want to say that when it says we defaulted to idol worship, let's know that today that's not something we're going to default to. But there are other problems. And most of it's just, I don't feel like doing it, or I'm forgetting, or I'm enjoying what happened in the times of Devorah. I'm enjoying the pleasure of my life. I'm enjoying the ease of my life. That is too much work. Judaism's too much work. Which I know does not have to be such work. You like it, right? And I know you like it. I mean, I could keep going. I mean, David, we all, the whole of us here, or you're working on liking it. Also good.
Idolatry really has one general form, and all these other things kind of factor into it.
I'm listening to you.
It is when the ego is in the center. You can live life in one of two ways. Either God is in the center or your ego is in the center.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything else you've mentioned, money or comfort or whatever, it's all an extension of me first and foremost.
Yeah. Right. And when God created us, he created us. And there was a communal, when you're sure you heard this, but God said, let us make man, not I will make man. And there's a whole bunch of understanding for that. But yeah, we are our own people with our own souls. We have to go about and do our days, but it would be great if somewhere in there we could stop and also bring Hashem in. I don't just mean you stand, and if you're a davener, if you say brachos, you pray in the morning, which not everybody is, or you say moda'ani, that's great. But I'm talking more about as you're walking through your day and the person in the jewel line is very long and frustrating and you're about to become not so nice. Is this good for me? Is this the best option? My students want to go to Walmart I wish Cheryl was here. I wish Cheryl Cutler was here. My 3 students want to go to Walmart every single, I don't who goes to Walmart in the middle of school. This is not an activity. But somehow, I don't know, it became, okay, I'm not even gonna go. You asked me yesterday, are we going to Walmart? I'm like, you went to Walmart this morning. You went and got Play-Doh. We're not going to Walmart. They said, but nobody saw us go. I'm like, oh, okay. So if nobody saw us go, well, I did do that, and they were annoyed with me. But if somebody saw us go, well, Mrs. Color didn't see us go. This is my friend Cheryl, who works the front desk and is basically like the principal right now. Mrs. Color didn't see us go, so we don't have to worry about it. I said, you know, I did that. Mrs. Color didn't see us go, but I know you went. So already we're not on the straight path, but Hashem knows you went. You guys, you know you went there already. We are not sneaking around. We can live a higher life. And so we have to remember how to take these Jewish tools that we have. A lot of it's relying on Hashem, on God, but putting them into our lives. And I know you know this. I know we've talked about it here, but it's a good thing to remember because we're going to forget about it when we're trying to get our kid into whatever, or I don't know. Like, who else does it happen to? Marcy, does it happen to you?
Forgetting.
Do you remember stuff and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to do that? Yeah, of course.
Are you speaking about Jewish stuff or just stuff?
Jewish stuff. I'm speaking of. No, Marcy knows. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. People are like, when you forget that God runs the world and you're like stressing about something, you're like,
Yes.
oh my God, I can't, what am I gonna do?
Yes.
And then you're laying in bed and like worrying and then out, and you're like, wait. It's Hashem, like whatever, like it's Hashem runs the world, and then you have the biggest grin on your face.
Yeah.
And you like calm down and
Right.
the best feeling ever. So I think it's worth it forgetting to remember.
That's what Lawrence, that's what Les was saying. That's what we're saying here. Okay, we're switching the side. Yes.
So.
I feel bad for the Zoom people. They're not part of this. Okay, whatever. All right, sorry. Oh, low battery.
Keep going. Right. So there may have been a rabbi that's a son of somebody in the room that,
I don't know who you're talking.
yeah. We hopped in his rental car
Mhm.
with me and one other person and him and drove to Hebron. And we get there and it's an Islamic holiday, so we can't go in.
Okay.
So we go and pray from what's the step? No, or step, maybe that when the Jews were not
You
allowed
mean
to
the
go
cave,
into the
the
tomb of the
cave?
patriarchs.
Yeah, Martyr Machpelah.
We're at
The
tomb of the
cave of, yes,
patriarchs,
the tomb of the patriarchs, correct.
and we can't go in.
Okay,
And we drove all the way from,
I know, it's a far drive.
it's a far drive.
Yeah.
We get there, can't go in.
Okay,
So it was a little aggravating at first. But then it's like, you know what? Maybe Hashem wanted us to see what it was like for the Jews who couldn't go in and pray from where they prayed and get a whole different perspective on it. And we did, and it was amazing. And then a couple years later, we went back and we got in. So it's
It was
like
much more meaningful for you.
more
because what
meaningful
happened
for
first.
sure, because we couldn't go in the first time.
But that was a really beautiful lesson that you could be anywhere and pray for anything. You think you need to be in a certain spot. It's certainly to be for certain reasons, but at the end of the day, I'll go wherever.
somebody, more powerful. Mhm. I was talking with my sister-in-law here tonight, but we were just talking this through, and Jewish history is written down for a reason. It's not just history, it's the story of our life that we can learn from. And I talked about how Hashem will send an oppressor and we cry out to Hashem and Hashem saves us and things are good for 48. And this is a cycle that goes on and on and on. And she said to me, but how do you know for sure? How do you know that all this happened? I'm like, oh, okay, well, I always say, people say we're the people of the book. You've heard this? No? What does it mean we're the people of the book? Who knows? We're the people that carried that book, that instruction book around with us. And we're telling you, if you're interested, we're mostly interested, but if you're interested, we'll share it with you. Okay. And we would like to, because it's good. People of the book, that's what we're called. Then I kind of figured out that I think we're actually the people of the do, because Judaism is a connection of belief and action. It cannot stay in the realm of the mind. It cannot stay in the realm of the soul. It's not how we were built. It's not how it's built. It's built to be done. It's built to be done, which is why there's so much action. We do not just go to our temple one day a week and then leave after an hour. We have a whole week full of opportunities to do things. Those are mitzvot, or I call them ma'aseh, things to do, okay? And my sister-in-law was still like, but how do you know? And I said, well, you know what? Maybe we could call ourselves the people of the write it down and don't forget. Because, and she loved that, made her feel better, because since the time that Moshe came down, he recorded everything in the written Torah. He did not record the oral Torah. That was supposed to be given over the pasha from mouth to mouth, from generation to generation, and it never was recorded until the second destruction of the temple during the Roman times. And the sages and the scholars of the time realized that this is probably bigger than we thought, and we may not get it back the way we were able to get back the first one. And then they started to record down the oral Torah. But Yoshua wrote down what happened to him, and Devorah wrote down what happened to her. And there were other prophets then. Gideon, I don't know if you've heard of Gideon. Shimshon, Samson, people have heard of him. There are some lesser ones. Ehud, I've never heard of some of these prophets unless I read, but they wrote it down so that we wouldn't forget it. So that's also, you should know, there's a lot of strength in knowing that our Torah has gone from generation to generation to generation. Okay. Let me see where I go here. What time is it? Ooh, it's almost 8:30. I may skip this. There's a mitzvah to remember 6 things every day. Sheish Zichronos. Anybody know about this? This one's like so obscure and tiny. Nobody knows about it. In davening in the morning, you are supposed to say 6 things that it is a mitzvah to remember, not to forget. I think I'm just going to review them real quickly, okay? Because it's important to hear. But this is some of these 6 are so important and integral to how we live our lives and what we can get out of Judaism. The first one is that you should remember that we were taken out of Egypt. Okay, always, in the Shema, in most of the bracha, in most of the davening, a lot on Shabbos. We talk about it in Kiddush. I mean, it's like, this is it. Okay, talk about it in when we break Hamazon. The second one is that you should remember that God gave us the Torah at Har Sinai. There, this is not made up. It was given to us, and we have a generational knowledge and a memory of this. Okay, the third remembrance is, this is a tough one. Remember that the nation of Amalek tried to attack you, and don't forget. This one about Amalek? Okay. Amalek was a nation that had no shame about running after us and trying to kill us. Other ones kind of snuck it around. They had a little bit of awareness of a God, a higher power. Amalek did not care. And so they're the worst, and they tried to kill us. They did not, obviously, it didn't work. But that one was the most powerful. And that is a mitzvah that we have to actually say that sentence. I think it's the week before Purim. It's called Parshas Zachor. You get to shul on time. Doesn't matter what's going on. You race with your kids. My daughter does not want to go. Believe me, I have a teenager, and we get there through the snow. And we stand there and we listen, because it's a mitzvah to not forget what Amalek did to us. We have to remember. It's like so funny. My husband was saying, that's a forget and remember right there. Don't forget what he did and remember what Amalek did to you. Okay.
Like, I'm thinking of it, like, look at what's going on in Turkey right now, and who's there. I mean, who showed up? Israel showed up.
And that's great, but how does that connect here? We always show up.
Oh, we always show up.
We always show up.
Yeah.
It's a little connected to Purim also because Haman is a direct descendant from the nation of Amalek. They say Hitler is too. I'm not sure how to process that one, but it is said that also. But Haman, we have more proof. Okay. Okay, that was the third. That was the. Okay, the fourth remembrance that we're supposed to remember every single day is that we built the golden calf. We have to remember that we did the sin of the golden calf.
Potential is in each of us.
The potential to resort to forgetting about God is in each of us. Yes. True. Maybe as being what's called an Ezer Kenegdo in the Torah, it calls us a helpmate against our husbands, but against is really the wrong word. It's like, I'm here to like help you grow, but the word is against, which maybe sometimes we like that word. I don't know. But yes, We were there and our role, you're right, we were not involved in that. Mhm.
We tried to stop it.
We tried to stop it. This is correct. Oh, you know so much, Julie. It's true. Okay, okay. The fifth one is, you need to remember what Miriam's, oh, okay. You need to remember what happened with Miriam and her negative speech and the affliction that she had. This one is like, right?
What was that?
Miriam spoke unkindly about Moshe to her brother Aaron, and she was afflicted with saras in Hebrew, which is a form of leprosy, which we don't actually, it's still around today. Why do I need to remember that?
Is that the first Lashon Hara? When we first hear of Lashon Hara in the Torah?
Yep. Yes. Julie. That was a woman, by the way, that did that.
We are asked to remember in a mitzvah about this specific thing because we are supposed to be so careful and it is so hard. And we all have learned you can break so many worlds with the wrong word. And that is why there are so many, I don't call them rules, but restrictions and suggestions and rules around guarding your tongue. Shmirat halashon, or we say lashon hara, right? Lashon hara. I had somebody once said, I'm really working on my lashon hara. I'm like, I think you're working on your shmirat halashon. I think you're working on guarding your tongue. I don't think you're working on your lashon hara. That was, I think we have it backwards. That's okay. We're gonna work this one out. We will fix this. Okay. And the last one is, I love this one. It's easy. There is a mitzvah to remember the Shabbat. Right. And it's the fifth commandment. So we say, if you're saying the 10 commandments every day, or if you're saying them once, you remember it. But I think most of us here have a way to remember Shabbat, that Shabbat is important to the Jewish people and that we should celebrate it differently than every other day. A lot of people here light candles and have a challah and have a Friday night meal and show up at my house for something. Yeah, right. Not all of you. Okay.
We didn't know that was an option.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk. What am I serving this weekend? The head of the CRC, Beit Din, the rabbinical court for the CRC, is coming to Northbrook, which is where I live. He comes every year. He's a scholar in residence. So they stay at our house, which is fine because we're very friendly with them. But there is an element of like, I mean, he's the head of the.
Everything has to be perfect.
I just don't, not perfect. I just don't want to say the wrong thing. Maybe that's where I should go with that. No, they're very friendly, but that's where I'll be the Shabbos. It's just, on tiptoes.
It's not similar to when the.
He makes his own wine. Rabbi Yonah Reese is his name. If anybody, we've heard of him. Yeah, you've heard him speak. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so he's clearly making the rounds in the North Shore. Okay.
He was amazing.
You liked him.
Really,
When God sees in us how much we try, he doesn't remember our failures. He chooses to overlook them and remember our efforts. That is what Hashem, you know how we have selective memory? People will say, what if Hashem remembers the bad stuff I did? Or if I did what we call an avera, or I hate the word sin. It's not the right word. It's an English word. It's probably a Greek word. It's not our word. But if I've missed the mark and I have an avera, something that I have to work on, I feel bad when I bring it in front of Hashem and I fear that he's going to remember that about me. But the beautiful thing that I am learning about Hashem is he himself has selective memory. And he chooses only to remember the things about us that we love about him. He doesn't focus on the bad stuff. He just keeps showing up. God keeps. So not only is that a historical situation, it's in your own lives. You can make as many mistakes as you can, and you can keep coming back. Well, so that also leads to, if this was Erev Rosh Hashanah and we were in Ella, we could talk all about tshuva and how that's built in different class. Come back. I'll give that class another time. Okay. I want to give one last view into this and reverse it so that we can, be done at 8:30, which it is, and get to know God a bit better. I've been talking about what if we forget God and then if we remember God. That's what this whole class has been about. But some people say, what if God forgets us? What if God doesn't remember us anymore? You say no? No such thing.
Well, aren't there times in our history where many people feel like he's forgotten us? The
Yes.
Holocaust, or if you have the death of a young child, there's God for all this. So there's all sorts of times when you might feel like God forgot you.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily.
So that's a lot of work to carry that one and still try to stay connected to that Hashem loves me, Hashem's with me, Hashem remembers me. Look, painful things suck. I don't like them. I do not like them. My brother passed away. It was a horrible accident. Some of you know about it. Not for now, but when I got back to Israel, I was in Israel to fly home. It was a truck accident with my brother. It's horrible. My parents were forever broken, unfortunately. But when I got back, I went back to my seminary where I was learning, and I'm like, Rabbi Gottlieb, one of the big speakers. I'm like, okay, I have a question. My brother had special needs. His whole life was challenging. Our whole life was challenging. And now somebody killed him. And I want you to tell me what is happening here. Because I'm here learning. I gave a whole year of my life to get here to know about God and Judaism. You're supposed to tell me about it. Somebody explain this one to me. I did that. I don't know if he remembers me, but
What was the answer? Yeah, what was the answer?
well, you've heard this answer before, and I loved this answer, and it helped. You're not always going to get the answer you love either. I did. You may not, but he said, and also because my brother had special needs and they were very challenging. So he said that he thought that maybe my brother's work here was finished and that it was done and it was time to go. Now, that is not the way it would be with a little child. You can't really attach that to the Holocaust story. I'm not asking you to attach it to everything. I, however, could, because I lived with my brother and I knew how horrible it was. And I didn't know what it was going to be like when he was older. And he loved people. And I used to think, well, if the only thing that he really had to work on and fix was just loving people, maybe he was a really not nice person in another life, but he loved people. He kissed them, he hugged them. So if that was it, and I just became okay with it. It can happen. I didn't say it's always going to happen. And you and I have talked about it. You don't have to love Jews. You just have to be okay with Judaism. You can't always be okay with the way it's lived. Like I say, don't judge Jews by don't judge Judaism by the Jews that live it. Okay, so I want to wrap up because I found a beautiful thing to read here, and it's a conversation between the Jewish people and God. What?
Their role models and mentors attach some value. I wouldn't say judgment. I would say if these people, if I'm looking to these people and they inspire me to be a better person and they live a life with Torah and strive to keep mitzvahs, then I can attach some value to that, some indication that it's connected. So therefore, I would also like to obtain that level of caliber of where they're holding. So I'm going to try to emulate that, like how we try to emulate God, right? We want to be like God. God is so generous to all of us, right?
You know, I hear you, and I love my mentors, but I think most people don't really like the word Hashem, 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 Hashem. They look at you and they're tune out, and they don't really know what that's about. It takes a lot of learning to learn who God is and where God is in our lives. You have to really be committed to seeing where God is. It's and understanding that what it means to have a relationship with God. He's not even here. I can't see him. I mean, you know the song, Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is truly. But is he? I can't see him. Again, we all know this. So like it takes a lot of work. So I hear you. And I do emulate and I do learn so much from the people in my life that are steps ahead of me and that are living a vibrant Jewish life. But I don't know. Oh, well, that's something different. That was when typical things happen.
Whatever. I think that's referring to, you can't judge.
I just was saying that when hard things happen and they happen and things you can't handle, it's helpful if you can get to a place where you can eventually say, I see that this happened and I'm still okay with you. Okay. All right. I'm going to close up here. Yeah. So I said, some people say, what if God forgets us and doesn't remember us? Medrash on a Mishnah. As individuals and a nation, we can think that God has forgotten about us or that God will only remember the mistakes and the rough stuff we do. And just as we have a selective memory, I said, God, so to speak, chooses a selective memory when it comes to us as beloved people, Am Yisrael. Okay, so here's what it says. I'll try and go through it. It's actually quite beautiful. It was said about the time when the Jews were expelled from Israel the first time in the destruction of the temple, and they had to go to Babylon or Bavel. Herm's story, and we were able to go back 70 years later, which is remarkable when we think about the second destruction. But I've said this before, but we were a nation for over 800 years, never having to leave Israel once we got out of Egypt. And now we were kicked out and everything we built was destroyed. I mean, it was tremendous emotional and spiritual destruction for the Jewish people. It's the first time that it ever happened. You know, it's happened to us a lot. I mean, we can handle it. We've handled it a lot. We may not like it, but like this is they didn't have the history we have. They were like, so it says they were crying on the rivers of Bavel. We say this sometimes, we say this Tehillim, this Perikah Tehillim, but here's what it says, okay? For the first exile, Zion, that's a name for us, it's one of our nicknames, Zion. Zion said, the Lord has abandoned me and the Lord has forgotten me. Is not abandoned the same as forgotten? That's what they say. It is said by the scholars at that time, the community of Israel said before the Holy One, blessed be he, sovereign of the universe. When a widow or widower takes a second spouse after the first, he or she surely remembers the deeds of the first. It appears not so with you, God. You have both abandoned me and forgotten me. The Holy One, blessed be he, answered her, and the female were referred to as Israel in our relationship. It's sort of like a marriage here. Referred to her, my daughter, 12 constellations have I created in the firmament. And for each constellation, I've created 30 hosts. And for each host, I've created 30 legions. And for each legion, I've created 30 cohorts. Can my mathematician keep up here? There's a lot of numbers going on. Okay, I can't. There's a lot happening that he says he's creating. And for each cohort, I've created 30 maniples. These are Roman words to describe war terms. That's how it's written. And for each maniple, I have created 30 camps, and to each camp I have attached 365,000 of myriads of stars corresponding to the days of the solar year. And all of them I have created only for your sake. I created all of this for you. How can you say you have forgotten me and forsaken me? Can a woman forsake her suckling child? Said the Holy One, can I possibly forget the commitment to me in the desert, to me in the wilderness? And Israel says, sovereign of the universe, since there is no forgetfulness before the throne of your glory, perhaps you will not forget and you will remember the sin of the calf. So you're saying you're not going to forget me, and you've given me lots of examples, but what if you remember what we did with the calf? Are you going to forget that? And God replied, everything is forgotten. These will all be forgotten. Israel then says they're not satisfied. Sovereign of the universe, seeing that there is forgetfulness before your throne, perhaps you will forget my conduct at Sinai. You will forget that I said that I want to do this, and then I forgot to do this. And Hashem finished with, I will never forget you. So in God's language, remembering is like this. This is how Hashem remembers us. It's not the bad stuff and the challenges. He remembers that you are important to me. This is Hashem saying to all of us. You are like your children. It's so true. So true. You are relevant to me. This is what remembering means in Hashem's language. You are relevant to me no matter what has happened. In God's selective memory and the way God chooses to remember us, he remembers our loyalty. God remembers that we accepted the truth of the Torah at Har Sinai. God remembers that we bound ourselves to him in a relationship at Sinai. Yeah. God remembers that in every generation, we teach our children about God, and we teach them to yearn to be close the same way that we are yearning to be close. He remembers our yearning. God remembers that we don't forget the beauty, the splendor, and the Kedusha of the Beit Mikdash, the temple. He knows that we are always, it's everywhere. We say it all the time, bring us back, help us rebuild the temple. There was glory, there was splendor, we were so close to you. Let us rebuild that. God knows that we will not forget thee, O Jerusalem, which is a beautiful part in one of the, in Tehillim and Psalms. And that we long to rebuild the temple in order to be in a relationship with God. God remembers that while God chose us, we chose God. All the way back to Abraham. We didn't have to, but we did. And everybody in this room, by the way, is choosing to have a relationship with God and figure it out, or you wouldn't be here. In so many ways, God says to us, I have not, and I will never, ever forget about you, even when you forget about me. So in conclusion, what we've done together this evening is how can we take the insights into this? What I started with was that when you forget that, you know, to remember something and then you remember you forgot it. And then what can I do today, tomorrow, a little thing to bring Jewish life alive for me, for my family, in the hard times, little things. And then it could be days that you forget and then you could remember again. But I wanted to share this because it's happened to me and it is so important to me in the way that I live. And so that's that. You can tell me things you're thinking about. I mean, if people have to go, that's fine also, but. No. You know, I have a cousin in Baltimore, it's a lot of kids. I don't know how she keeps up with them. And she said about like kid number 5, she started when they had a band, I don't know what your name is. Who are you? Yeah. What?
Sophia.
Hi, Sophia. You're like the only person I don't know. Hi.
You actually know her.
You know her daughter, Talia. Irina.
Her daughter's Talia.
Oh, Talia Arena. Oh, yes. I do know you. I've met you. Okay. Oh, yeah, I know your granddaughters. Okay, sorry. We know her. All on the fold. Oh, so she said that, you know, it used to just be like, okay, I'll give you Advil, I'll put a Band-Aid on. And she told me that somewhere in there, she realized that maybe it was good to say, as she's putting the Band-Aid on, we should daven that you have a refuah shlema. Like such an interesting shift. And it seemed like a lot to do, but okay, yes, I will totally translate it. And I appreciate you asking me to translate it. I want everybody to always ask me. I love questions. There's no stupid question with me. Refuah is health and shlema is complete, but we ask for it speedily. We want it like really, we want to have it. That's, you know, and so when we hear people are unwell, we say they should have a refuah shlema, which a complete recovery. But even in the education of her children, she decided to shift it so that they remembered that even in cut on a finger, they could actually say, you know, obviously I hope this Band-Aid works. You know, everybody needs a Band-Aid. Every kid needs like 12 Band-Aids. But that training them, teaching them. Okay, I don't know. Anything else? That's.
I was gonna say that I think most people here I loved everything, but most people here can have many experiences of forgetting to remember, but it's the people that don't know to remember. Like they just don't know. And we have people in our lives like this. And it's hard. And people in your life that are close to you don't even know to remember. That's hard.
You have to remind them. Gently.
Yeah.
Les is about to talk, everybody. The room shall be silent.
For 2 reasons now, this evening has been really great.
Okay.
I was given an insight as I was listening to you about forgetting.
Mhm.
And basically, the most important thing is to go from your head to your heart, that you're actually internalizing at a level of essence in yourself. And I'm thinking the following, that remembering after forgetting creates an energy that may be the tool that is necessary to drive this concept from the head into the heart.
Listen, I wish I could write that down. I mean, I could write that down, but
That's half
it
right.
is. It's only half right.
The other half is you got to get it from heart to action. And that by doing action, the more actions you do, the more easily it is to remember what you're supposed to do. Well, here, I see you one and I'll raise you one. The process of internalizing it means that you will do without thinking. It becomes a part of yourself. You don't have to intellectually make a decision at every point in time. That's what I said. You were right.
You know, in the Shema, it says that you shall have all these things on your heart. Anybody think about that? I had a hard time with that because I didn't understand why it doesn't say in your heart. It doesn't say all these things should be in your heart. If I had a sitter, I'd read, it said all these things should be on your heart. Because every word we're told has a meaning. It's written a certain way, everything specifically. Okay, so now we have to go and figure it out. But it was taught to me, this is so long ago, but I always remember it, that it means that a lot of things stack up on your heart, and they just don't go in yet. And something snaps, something happens, and your heart opens up and it all falls in. So these things will be on your heart until they can be in your heart.
And actually, you gotta keep working because you gotta keep them in your heart.
Well, like faith, you know that faith takes practice. You don't just get it. I mean, we say in the morning, we say Elokai Neshama. If you don't know it, I'll share it with you. But we do say that we have a pure soul. And we do say, God and Moda'ani, you believe in me, you woke me up. So if you believe me, we're good to go, right? But it doesn't, you don't just get it. It's not like a free ride. Unfortunately, faith takes a lot of practice. Just thought I'd say that one too, because I find that one hard. I don't love davening. Oh, you either? I do it. I open it up in the morning, I say it, but it's just not my thing. And I don't know why. And I have tried and I've tried. Do you know what I love though? And it's not about me. I'm trying to share this so you can hear things. It's not me. When I get Darach Noam on Shabbos and I finally get there and I have nobody bothering me, I finally relax into it and I fall in love with davening. And I do think, why don't you do this every day? It's so stupid. Like, so faith everything takes practice.
So
Everything takes practice.
do you like doing the Modani?
I do say it. But you
Do
know what
you like
happens?
doing
Do I
it?
like do it? I think that I stumble out of bed and say it on the way to making sure my daughter's awake. And I need a picture of it by my bed. So when I read it, it makes more sense. And then I feel a little bit bad that I didn't say it right. So sometimes I go back and say it again.
Do you want to know what I think about?
I for sure want to know what you think about it.
Like, I think,
Deep soul that you are.
I think about like, when you say Hashem returns your soul to you, like you have a chance to make a big difference that day in the world. And that's what you should go out and do. So like that, like gives me like a jump in my step rather than, oh, I have to do this, and this. It's like, there's a reason that it happened and now you have a chance to make a big difference in the world.
Maybe that's the only thing we can take away for tomorrow is that our Moda'ani, and if you don't know it, you can find it online, just type in Moda'ani, it'll come right up. And we can try and say it with like, you know what? God returned my soul to me. God believes in me. His faith is great in me. It says, Amunatecha, Rabba Amunatecha. If he believes in me, I can believe in me.
You didn't forget me. You got my soul.
Yeah, and I could do good stuff and I could have a hard time, but I could go at it with strength and I remember you, that you're here with me. That's the only thing we do tomorrow. That'd be good. Okay.
Learning less.
I know, less is good.
Right. We all learn.
What are you showing you? I did. You did. That's just. I'm so happy for you. Thank you.
So what I took away from this, you're being
I we either have guests or.
We got it.
Closer to what you feel like, because one of the more people know that's like that's what I'm trying to. That's the thing you try. Do it anyway. No.
Where do you
No.
live? Where do you-
I'm technically right by the YMCA. No. Well, let's find. Why don't you? Oh, no. You tell me when you're available, and then yes, that's exactly. You would like 10.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
What?
That is yes.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Oh my God, thank you, Ken. Thank you. Yeah.
So my daughter did.
Oh, so that's, okay.
My daughter.
Oh, yeah, I could ask her to spell. Yeah,
So-
I went to debate first, then I went back. Sharon is great.
So it depends, if you're really serious or you're really not, based on how my daughter picked seminary.
Oh,
And based on how some of her friends
Love Sharon.
Yeah,
That's what I
she loved
needed.
it. She actually was just back. She was just back there for the meeting.
Went to college, that's really cool. My daughter is like, oh, okay.
So
I'm going to, like,
And then we'll find
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Okay, I do have time.
I do it, but I don't do it, I do it because I'm supposed to. But I don't have that.
There's a lot to learn about what the history behind how we got this stuff.
I would
The
love.
only place in the Torah where prayer is described to us is the Shema. And then from that, we learn so much more about prayer, but it's because pray all over the Torah. But in that one space, my tell people about the Shema. Yeah, okay, fine. I love to. My daughter. Okay, fine.
I didn't ask her. I just have to tell her tomorrow how I did. She
You
worked
did great.
It was a little disjointed.
You know what? This whole thing screws you up.
I would have been, I went through it 3 times and I thought, I still want to share it. Some people not explain.
My daughter is. Also, trying to figure out how quitting his job and going to work.
I did all of that. So if you want my ever about what the job, be the parent. I can tell you what my parents did and didn't do and the mistakes we made. If you'd like to hear,
Can I
it
just
sounds
say
like it.
goodnight?
Yeah.
I just want to say good night and thank you. Love the way you project. It's just pretty wonderful. Thank you very much.
Part of you gave so much.
I was given.
So nice to learn you. Yeah, you too. Very painful. Oh, yes, my dad just died, so it's very raw for me. But
What do you think? I think I've been, I don't know, I think I've been pretty.
they were pretty good. I mean, they were freaked at first.
Oh, well, what?
But my cousin, when I told you about, was religious first, and they thought she was. Hold on, I can tell you.
So we would have a list really gross.
Yeah.
We don't know. They will, but they.
So. Yeah.
Oh,